In this video, you guys are about to watch me build a transmission adapter to run a Chevy transmission up with this Evinrude 2-stroke boat engine. So I'm going back to my original idea. Instead of taking this and bolting it to the harmonic balancer and then not having any space to make it as tight, the flywheel and everything, flex plate, as close to here and make the transmission everything close, my original thought was to build a bracket, like an assembly that comes off this, and have a carrier bearing in there that takes some weight, and that would give me some room to put some stuff that I haven't told you about in here that I need. The reason why I wanted to switch is because that's going to put the transmission like out here, and then it'll be much longer than it should be. But we're gonna have to go back to that idea just because that's the only way we can actually get it done. So I got this in, I think it's from China, I don't know. This is a 7/8. There's multiple different styles of this bearing. There's one that's the typical one that has just 2 bolts that go down and the shaft goes through it. That was the one that I had pictured getting, but then I saw this and I was like, I think that would provide more stability and strength, having 4 bolts that hold it in this direction rather than just 2 bolts that hold it down. And then we got these 7/8 collars here. We got 4 of them. I fitted one on here. It's really tight. Like there's no play. It's really good. So I'm gonna put this camera on the stand and then show you kind of what I'm thinking. So this slide on here. It's got some paint on it right here, so that's why it doesn't want to slide over the paint. It's that tight. But for demonstration purposes, we're fine. So this does have a set screw, geez. But we're gonna run extras anyway. So I'm thinking like this. So set screw or collar behind it, in front of it, and this. And this will be welded bolted to a bracket that we're going to weld to that back plate that's bolted to the engine. And we'll center this and everything so it'll be as perfect as it can. And then these collars, since they're so tight, I'm gonna put one on the back in front of this so that, or maybe just the back so I can get it perfect, because pushing it up against like that is making this like perfect 90, but then I'll also use my 90-degree magnets, I don't know, and we'll make sure that that's true. The only problem is that there's not going to be room with this design for the torque converter to sit inside of it like it does a normal crankshaft, unless we do something. I'm thinking we could cut the back of the crankshaft off of an engine, but I don't have a spare 350 crank. So we're gonna go with this for right now and just kind of see what we can do. It's gonna be very vital that this plate is exactly where it needs to be when we do this, so we get no movement. So I'm gonna stick this drill bit through these bottom holes that we didn't, never mind, they don't come out the back. Okay, so that means, kind of just gotta eyeball it. I'm gonna mark where stuff needs trimmed. Okay, well, we got one right here. Something like that. smoke. I don't know, every time I look at it, it looks like I'm going further and further off. Ow! This is difficult. Ow, dude. Keep hitting my head on these. It's so hot. Alright, well, I'm just gonna do this. I've got the plate bolted to the engine with, I believe I counted 8 bolts, and it takes 14, but everything else is slightly off. Like all my holes are off. I should have ordered a gasket and then laid the gasket down and marked the holes off that. But this is exactly at 90 degrees right now. Well, never mind, 91, or wait. I guess it depends on how we're looking at it. Right there, it's like 90. But I'll look at it a little more. But I'm gonna stick that shaft. I first have to cut it, stick that shaft in there, and get it perfect. Not only up and down, side to side, and every angle. It has to be perfectly centered out of that hole. But we gotta cut it. Cut this 7/8 part off. So everything I ordered and have done is for 7/8. So if we mess this up, we do have this one, but it is not 7/8. So really we have one shot, unless we just have to order everything for this diameter, and then it's smaller anyway. So I'm gonna cut it. All right, this just feels wrong, cutting this one shaft that I got. But here it goes. I'm just going to chop it off in half. It can only go so deep. You have to use a sawzall. Alright, bent blade as always. Yeah, we just melted this blade, which I kind of expected, because this is some pretty heavy duty stuff. I don't know if this is hardened or what. Just, oh my god, it's hot though. Alright, we're gonna see if we can get anything out of this blade. Doesn't look like it. So here we are, we cut it in half. So I don't know if I'm going to cut this part off or not. I probably should, just so that it looks the same, because that would determine how deep it could go in the engine. But you can see that's the thickness of this one, so it just got necked down. So we're going to keep this one around as a backup, or I don't know. We'll keep it around for stuff. So I'm gonna leave it over here. Here we are, and to continue further, I have to fill you guys in on the engine management system that I plan to use. So here we go. So this engine, first I gotta give you the background, is a 2-stroke engine. So unlike a 4-stroke, every single time this piston comes up to top dead center, it fires. And only the second top dead center of a 4-stroke, it fires, because you have the power stroke. So after it fires, a power stroke goes down, and then when it reaches the bottom, comes back up. Now it's an exhaust stroke on a 4-stroke engine. So it comes up, pushes the exhaust out, and then it goes back down. Now it's an intake stroke. Your intake valve opens up, and as it's going down, it's pulling in fuel and air. And then once it reaches the bottom, or roughly there, all the valves close. So now it's a closed system. And then when it's coming up, the air and gas has nowhere to go. So it's just compressing it. Once it reaches the top, boom, it fires. And so that was your compression stroke, and now it turned into your power stroke. Well, on a 2-stroke, there's no valves. It's like it's hard to explain. It's like holes in the side of the cylinder if I remember right. So every time it goes down and comes up, or every time it comes up, it fires. So we have to build a system to kind of trick a computer. So I decided to use an LS computer, go with an LS system, and then I'll have coils on each one. But this is a cam sprocket to an LS, and your camshaft of a 4-stroke engine spins at half the ratio of your crank. So when your crankshaft spins 2 times, it spins your camshaft 1 time. So what I'm going to do is drill this hole and put the camshaft sprocket on the crank, and then I'm going to use this and run another sorry, it's so I got sweat running down my face. Run a jack shaft with the other pulley on it with, let's see, where is my stuff? So, and I'm going to run this is your crank reluctor wheel, which gets a signal. So this is actually going to be driven at 2 times the speed of the crank. So I'm reversing it. So the computer will think that 1400 RPMs, when the computer reads the engine's at 1400 RPMs, it's actually at 700, because we need the computer to send a spark at twice the rate of a regular 4-stroke. So that was why I originally wanted to do this, because I'd have room here to put this stuff and build it in this back. It'll all be hidden, and this is now going to take the full weight of the torque converter, and nothing will be on the engine. This engine now, all it does is spin. That's it. This engine will not take any forward, back abuse or weight. There will be no weight on the crank, nothing, because it'll all be just on this barrier or bearing, and the weight of that will be transferred to this plate, which will be transferred to the block, which then will go to the frame. So we're good there. Oops, I almost fell over. It's so hot. So we're gonna get to drilling this out. Oh, she was here for pets. Alright. Oh geez. It's a bit of a tight fit. So I'm going to ever so slightly persuade it. There we go. Probably just a burr. So now, what we're trying to do, yeah. So the reason why I put it on this way, which this looks backwards, is because, wow, I just grabbed that shaft, the grease up shaft. You flip it, this would be the front of the engine, and I'm gonna make it just as if it was bolting on an LS. So I'm going to gently, very gently, just give it a couple taps to drive this a little lower. I didn't want to, with that interference, I did not want to pound it on, even though it was closer to this side. I did not want to pound it on past these. And I did make the decision I'm going to chop this end off to make it flush. So there we are. I've got that. Very good fit. Very well centered. So now I'm going to put a collar behind it. So we have engine, sprocket, and I haven't thought much through, but I do want to put some type of pulley on here to run an alternator and an AC compressor so the car can have air conditioning, because this is too hot. But no matter what, we're just going to put that collar on, and that'll help us for when we, I'm not going to weld this because we would never be able to get it apart, because this end is going to have this welded on it. So if I weld this on, then everything else is stuck. So we're luckily left with those holes, so we might be able to, we'll get there when we get there. It's all as we go stuff. So right now I have to think of, what am I going to do now? Am I going to put a pulley on this shaft and run the alternator off it? And if so, where can I get one? What can I use? So I think I'm going to take a break from this and just look around the shop, see what I've got, if I have anything. So I'll be right back. Just found these. So this one's already removed. This is off of a smog pump to a 460 Ford, and this is to a 4.6 or a 5.4 power steering pump. This is larger in diameter, which is what we would want that. I think I'm going to take it off. It's just I could actually use this pump and need this pump for a couple other builds I got going. But see that size? This right here would spin an alternator and an AC compressor faster, which means the alternator would put out more power and the AC compressor would operate better. So I think, even though that's junk, like this is, I have no use for this at all. I just kept it because you keep things, or this, but I feel better about this one here. The only thing is, if that's the diameter of that's gonna have to be drilled out, and I do not have a 7/8 drill bit that long. So maybe I will use the other one out of sheer no other option. I didn't think of that until right now. Yep, if I use this, I'll measure this, because a regular crank pulley is, even that's a small one. That's even small, but see how much bigger it is? So ta-da! Look at that. I knew I should keep looking. I found this junk. So this is some junk. Looks like it's also a air pump, but this is much bigger. So you can see here, same 3-bolt pattern. Look how much smaller that is. This is the same exact size, if not slightly, ever so slightly larger than that power steering one right there. So we're gonna take this off and use it, because we have no need for this. And then I'm gonna stick this stuff back where I found it, which was like tucked away. Check this out. Here's this. I mean, that's a perfect fit. That is perfectly centered. See that? I mean, I could not have fit that better. I mean, in theory, I'm just looking at this. In theory, what would happen if I cut this completely out and put this ring onto here? I don't know. Or should I just leave it like this and let it slide over and be part of that shaft? I don't know. Here is my first thoughts slash like rendition or render, I don't know what you call it, kind of where my mind is at with this assembly. These are not positioned where they should go on here. This is just the stuff put onto the shaft. This is kind of where I'm at. So plugs into the back of the engine, then we'll have the harmonic balancer right there, which we just saw. This fits perfectly over. I mean, just mint, to the point where I'm thinking of just cutting this center completely out and welding it to the outer rim of this. And then instead of making this like a harmonic balancer, it would be like a harmonic balancer crank pulley. So it would also be the pulley itself. And then that would allow me to take a little bit of length off this shaft, just a little bit. And then we have this is a LS, like we said before, LS cam sprocket. And I don't know anything about LSs, but I did the research, and this is a something X. There's two of them. But if you know LSs, you're looking at this stuff and you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the newer LS one. And this reluctor wheel, I think, is like a 48 instead of the 24 or 54 instead of, I don't know. But I got the stuff that matches. And then we have this bearing, and then this is kind of thin for the flex plate mounting too. But see, now it's already better. But now we stick this in the engine. Let's just measure and let's decide what's next. Looks like a transmission almost, like a manual transmission shaft. Bonk. And that will be about right there. We should probably put the harmonic balancer back on. And then this collar. Get on there. Man, stuff doesn't want to slide. Yeah, we need that harmonic balancer put on. It's like 110 or something today. I feel like, you know, to me, I feel like I should be working harder, faster, more frequently, but my wife says I have to break. I had to take breaks and stop working. But I feel like this winter, you guys are gonna see a lot more content more frequently and everything, because I won't be dying. Like, you guys can't tell, you might be able to tell, I don't know, my skin is just glistening and sweat's just falling off my face. But all right, I'm gonna get the socket, tighten that up, put the shaft in. So we cannot get this to slide over like we did on the bench because of the crankshaft and the threads where the nut is down here. So for this to actually go above this, we would have to cut it out all the way completely. But if it slid over, we'd be in the way of all these bolts and other things. We'd have way less room. So we're just gonna leave it like that. And what I'm gonna do is, so help myself out a little bit, is just set this collar. And we never trimmed the end of this shaft, and we're not ready for that yet. Right now we're just trying to get it centered so it doesn't matter really where the end of the shaft is, if it's 1 foot long or 2 feet long. Because we're just trying to get the mount for this. Now, where that would want to be, I don't know. Thinking that would be enough room for the chain. Set that right there. That takes a different size. Voila! Wait a minute. I might need more room for that. Because the angle iron we got. And we have to think wherever we put this bracket for this can't be in the way of this chain. So am I bringing this assembly over here towards the passenger side? Am I bringing it straight up? Where is this belt gonna go? Is it gonna go, is an alternator gonna be here? And you know that we have, there is so much to think of right now. The belt, we can add idler pulleys and stuff. We know there's going to be plumbing here. So that makes it harder. Let's check how long our chain is. Really short. How am I going to fit that reluctor wheel? The reluctor wheel is going to have to fit on the back of this, which means, okay, so we need to pull this back out. So since this chain is so short, we're gonna have a jack shaft run through this and just bolt or fasten to the back of this plate. This reluctor wheel is gonna be mounted on it. So it's gonna stick out like that, this reluctor wheel will, in between that stuff. So the real next step, oh wait, no, because right now I need to remember we're just getting the position of this. So we need to know our distance, that's just what we're doing. So let's give ourselves a fraction of a bit more room here, just so that we can work with it, but not too much that we're wasting space. About a 1/16 of an inch extra room. If I do this and we cut the shaft, or if I do it and it's, we can always shim this and use more material. Worst case scenario, if we get put back into a corner with this, we can cut the center of this out, push it back, give us some room. If that helps us there with this. This can get slammed all the way against it. Maybe. We need our angle iron real quick. I gotta grab it. So it doesn't fit. Wait a minute. What are our options here? So okay, we need to think, because if I fix this, build something here, that this has, everything in front of here has to slide off. All of this stuff has to be able to be disconnected, because this bracket is about to be permanent. And that this will be welded permanently here. This will have to be the very first thing you install. and then you have to slide this through the bracket we're about to build and install this stuff within this window. So what are my options here then? Would it be best to use a piece of plate steel, like 1/4 inch plate steel right here, and just weld it like that? That might be my best option. Which means I bought all of this is 8 inch thick. Could do something like this. That would actually work. So we might do something like this and cut. I'm gonna turn the camera off so you guys don't just hear me thinking out loud a lot, and then I'll bring you back when I've got some metal cut and we're about to weld some stuff up and create the next step. I've decided on an idea. So before I was going to weld an assembly coming off this little frame that this all would bolt into, and you heard me saying I would have to put this shaft in. Only this, obviously, it would be considered the shaft, welded one piece, and this on with the collar, slide it into the assembly, and then use microscopic room here to try to tighten that stuff on. That's a crap idea. So I went digging around and I have this piece. I wish I had a little more material on it. I was like, dang it. But then I looked, it's like perfect. So you can see we've got about 1.5 inches or so, maybe 1 inch on each side. So what I'm going to do, drill a hole dead center at 1 inch or even slightly bigger so this does not interfere. Have that go through, but first we'll do 7/8 inch so we can center it on there. Drill our 4 holes for this to bolt up, and then we will drill possibly 2, maybe 3. So 1, 2, so 3 holes here, 3 holes here, and then build an assembly that welds to this that is the mounting surface for this. So this will then bolt to it and center it all so that you can build this little box or little thing that we just built and just bolt it in, right in. So that means I could take this off, and my friend, he's got all kinds of CNC stuff and he can build some really good stuff. I could bring this to him and we could design this with much better, instead of it being made with so many different pieces, and 1/4 inch is too thin in my opinion for a flex plate that a torque converter bolts to. A 1/4 inch thick steel, I think this should at least be like a 3/8 inch, something bigger. But this is all prototype, so we're gonna start that. I'm gonna start with finding the center, dead nuts center of this, drill a hole right in it. There it is, bolted up. We have to cut these ears off to make it just a rectangle, and then drill some holes here either now or later when we mount it. I just realized I put this on backwards. This needs flipped. Wait, yeah, flip it around. Great. But yep, I guess I will assemble it the way it's supposed to be. Here are the pedestals that I was talking about to weld onto that back plate. Just kind of rough welded them together, like 2 tacks on each post. And then this one will go here, and I decided on the 3 bolts. Instead of doing real big ones like this, I'll probably do 3 mild sized bolts. Let's see, I might have one just laying here that I don't know, something a bit bigger than that. I don't know sizes, but we're just gonna drill these 3 and then put it here and then mark these holes here and bolt it there. I got these bolted on, these legs, kind of like a pedestal or whatever I've been calling it. So these legs will weld to that platform. I've already said it quite a bit, but I keep telling myself because I need to. And then this hole, the shaft obviously goes through, which we drilled that out to 1 inch now. It was at the exact 7/8, just like everything else, but I didn't want any interference or any rubbing. So I drilled that baby out to 1 inch, and now we're just gonna assemble this. Let's see, was I using washers on this? I'm gonna go to Lowe's or Tractor Supply or somewhere and pick up some shorter bolts just to help reduce the impact of space on this. And I have been going back and forth about the serpentine belt, if I should weld it to that harmonic balancer, because well, it's too late now, never mind. I guess it's not too late because I could cut this. Because if we moved that serpentine belt to the harmonic balancer, I could cut almost another inch off this. So that would drastically, because you gotta remember, this is sticking off the back of the engine. Then we still have a flywheel. So we put this much more distance between the back of the actual engine and the front of the transmission. So our small engine just became not so small. And all of these, I think, I don't know, I was thinking of saying I'm gonna weld these. I am gonna weld these nuts though, so that I don't have to stick a wrench back here, because that's gonna be really difficult. So I'll just melt those to it, and then when I assemble this or disassemble it, I just pull these bolts out. And then I was thinking about welding these, so this just kind of plugs on. That'd make my life a little easier. So let's see what kind of movement we have. I mean, this thing, oh geez, that's a good amount. We'll just get it to where we think it's the best. If I was really precise, see, I'm trying to find something to use as a demonstration. If I was super precise about this, I could even weld stops, like weld a piece like this, just a piece of steel, so this only can go there. And then you won't get any movement, because these holes, I mean, they're the exact same size, but even everything mixed together, you get a little play. Now that we have our distance and we know what we're gonna work with here, oh my gosh, I keep filming and messing up. Where's my wrench? Cut. So now that we've found our distance and we know how far out we have to be, we can remove all of these things that we installed so that we can set this up on here and get true center, I guess we could call it, where this shaft's coming out, because watch this play. Might not look like much, but that will destroy the engine and transmission within probably 30 seconds of operation. So, okay, I guess we get the whole assembly. These two collars, and this. Take the chain off. I'm gonna get hurt. There. Put it on. So I can already see. I thought about that. See, I knew it was close to 2 bolts, and I decided to do it like this anyway. It's alright, I got a welder. I can cut this bracket. Okay, so what we need is, I mean, is this engine on a perfectly level spot? I doubt it. But we did this before. I'm just gonna get this. So that's at like 89 degrees. So what would that mean? Does that mean that means the front of this engine, it looks like the front of this engine is slightly lower than the rear. By 1 degree. I'm getting, I don't know, this is not working that well. How precise is this? Same thing, like 89. So what would that mean for this? That would mean this would have to be 91 degrees. Okay, I'm gonna find it and tack weld it, and then I'll be back. We've got a severe storm rolling in here. Temperature just dropped way more than 15 degrees. I mean, I went from sweating to I could work in this all day, every day of my life. It's so nice. And well, then a breeze came in and it is thundering and lightning so heavy. But we might lose power because it was flickering. But we seem good. Now that I'm sitting here telling you about it, I haven't heard any thunder or lightning, and the lights haven't flickered, so I'm gonna flip the camera around and show you what I just did. So I checked the engine just over and over and over this plate in many different spots, and it is 90. I was just reading it slightly weird, at a weird angle, and it gets stuck every now and then, but it was dead nuts at 90, so I put this shaft at 0, which means this shaft is perfectly horizontal with the earth or something, and so is that engine vertical. So that means that this should be perfect coming out. And then I guessed kind of on the side to side, but then I measured from the edge of that peg to here, and I had 15 1/4, and from that peg to here, and I had 15 1/4. So those measurements were the same, as long as those distances from the block are the same and everything. And I see that one does have a washer. Oh, wait a minute. This one's even screwed out slightly. Oh, God. All right, well, we'll have to check if that shaft is true. Those are the only welds on it. 2 spot welds. And I used this jack to hold it where I needed it. So take some pressure off and move this baby out of the way. And we'll stand back and kind of look at it. It's starting to rain. I don't know, man. Jeez, I'm falling over and stuff. We'll just keep working on it. Here comes the storm. You guys won't even be able to hear me recording if it starts raining because this tin can isn't insulated. I put a couple more tack. I measured this a lot, and I believe it is the best I can get it. I believe. Do I 1000% think that it's like, I mean, down to the 32nd of an inch centered and level? No, I don't. But what I'm hoping is, I'm hoping that this shaft here and this, it'll allow it to move in there. I don't know, man. But next is this. So here's our flange for the flywheel. And we just gotta take this bell housing bracket that we made in the last engine video. So that was like a month ago already. Okay. And this slides off somehow. Okay. And this slides on here. No, it doesn't. Okay, I gotta drill that. Oh, that's, wait a minute. Yeah, I mean, that should work. I don't know why it's not. I'll send a drill bit through it real quick. There it is. I ran a 7/8 drill bit down it. There we go. Come on. What can we do here? Looks like I'm getting it to move. Okay. So there's a lot of distances and a lot of stuff here. So the flywheel on, here, let me explain this. The bell housing is actually before this flange. Wait. Yes. So this flange actually needs to be on the other side of this bell housing. But it's okay for now because I'm going to use this as a spacer because the distance of where the flywheel is to the mating surface of this flywheel has to be also perfect. If it's too far in, the transmission will never bolt up because the torque converter presses in there. So the torque converter bottoms out against the flywheel, and then even if I just cinch these down, tighten it, it could bend the flex plate and destroy the whole engine, forcing this shaft into the engine and putting too much stress on the transmission. Because when you actually put a torque converter in, you seat it all the way, and then you bolt your transmission up, and the torque converter actually comes out a little bit to bolt to the flywheel. So it's not, there's no pressure forcing into the thing. But if this mating surface is too far back, or no, too far forward to where your flex plate is, then the torque converter could get sucked in too much. So it has to be the exact same dimensions as a small block Chevy. But since this flange is able to be moved, what we're going to do is use this kind of as our stop. So I have it pushed up against these long bolts, which gives us about 1/2 inch of space here. We're gonna bottom this out all the way up against this and then weld our structure here to this plate. And then we can remove it all and take this flange off and then find a small block Chevy or take mine apart, take my engine out of that build over there and measure, or maybe go down the street to Vets Unlimited and see if they've got a small block Chevy with a flywheel bolted on it and we can measure. But for now, what we're gonna do is push this all the way up like we just said, level it, measure 6,000 times, and then start some tack welds and get a structure and an idea. So I'm gonna measure this so you guys don't see me and hear me thinking out loud again, and we're gonna go from there. Several months ago, I was helping my brother move, and I saw this piece of steel, and I was like, "Oh man, what are you doing with that?" He was like, "Throw it away like it's trash." And I was like, "Oh, what? I'll take that." He looked at me like with this look like, "You pack rat." Like, that's trash. But I took it, I kept it, I threw it in the truck, and I was like, "Well, I'm taking this home with me." Well, I dug this out, and we're about to cut that big square out that you see and weld it right there for some strength. So one man's trash is another man's treasure. I know it's my fault, but working on the ground with all this stuff around is so difficult. I'm always tripping, falling, knocking stuff over, and it's really difficult to work while I was just cutting this. And I was trying to do this and I couldn't hardly see because these goggles suck. Well, the thing kind of like fell and it wrapped up in the cord and cut it. I'm trying not to get electrocuted, but it won't focus. There we go. And you can see down in there, I mean, it like cut this thing in half, but guess what? It somehow still works. So we're gonna keep using it until it doesn't work. And I needed to get a new one too, and that switch, this thing overheats and I have to hold it. So when you see me, like, Jesus, that's dangerous. When you see me with one hand back here, I'm sitting here holding this because it overheats so much. So, I don't know. Well, gotta get back to work. I was welding this plate here, And I completely forgot, see how that's two? I forgot that these bars overlap. So this one here, this is actually pushed back a whole plate, which we have to cut the center of all this out. So right now I'm working on cutting that free and moving this plate to here and welding it. All right, so I'll admit I got kind of carried away on this one, just filming and not stopping to talk about it like this. Partly because this is what I just love. I love just fabricating. I start getting in the groove and I just start going. Plus the fan over there, when I'm talking, I have it on, you can't hear me, and you can hear that one up there, wherever it is, right up there. That is a squirrel cage fan out of a house. When my dad or grandparents, someone got the AC fixed at one point, that cage was sitting around forever. But I'm gonna turn the camera around and show you where I'm at. I just cut 2 pieces of steel, so I'm waiting for them to cool down. So this is where I'm at. This is that assembly that I built, and then I took this, which is the plate that I had on the front of this 4L60 to find the center. We slid it on here with that 7/8 shaft to center it, leveled it, and then I started with tack welding this 3/16 inch plate and that 3/16 inch plate and got it where I wanted. And then I measured from here to the back plate and I got these correct. So this should be good, and these ones were made correct from this plate. So it all should be as accurate as possible. And then I went and got some more 3/16 plate. I cut it and welded it in, well, tack welded it in here. This blue piece is the only 1/8 inch thick steel on this. I believe even these are 3/16. Actually, no, that's 1/8. Feels like 1/8. So those are 1/8, but I put this 3/16 inch plate as a gusset. It's just massive. The only problem I see with this is the serpentine belt that comes out of here. I was just gonna have it go up. So we'll either have to notch one side or just have pulleys that redirect it so it comes up here and then goes out of there just fine. I just cut this piece here that replicates this one and that gusset. And after I get those welded in, I'm going to cut a little triangle for here, or maybe 2 pieces, a small little triangle that fits in there, and a triangle here to just finish it up. You can see this is all still got to be hard welded, and then it'll all look like one piece. You'll never notice that it was many pieces when I'm done. I'll just kind of show you this on this side too. Where we're at. It's looking pretty good. I don't trust it yet to hold the weight of the transmission. And we'll find out. It is much deeper, further back than I thought, like further away from the engine. And I'm worried about that. Because now, look, we have the length of like a V10. So maybe after we do this engine swap, we'll pull it and stuff a V10 in the car. More cutting and welding and grinding. I want to at least get that stuff duplicated to the other side today and kind of go from there. And then we gotta finish up all that internal stuff that we had to assemble in there to know how much room we needed. I gotta finish all that stuff up yet. But I'm hoping that gusset is the right idea and bringing it out like that. The reason why I brought it out is because it actually was slightly too long. I actually originally intended for it to go straight and just weld up against that washer, which would have sucked, but I would have just dealt with it, that bolt. But then it ended up being too long. So then I put it at that corner, running to this corner, and then it kind of welds all down the side of this 3/16 inch plate. So maybe that's stronger anyway. And then it'll have this one running out there. So it'll kind of spread the bracing out a bit more. And we still have to drill these bottom holes here. The hole is right in the center of that. So I got to drill through a weld, and on one side I welded it pretty good. So that'll be 6 bolts, and you can see here that's all 6 main ones that it would originally bolt with anyway. There's a couple down there, but I don't think those bolted to the engine. So back to welding. I've got these two sketched out of this little template here, and I don't know how good you guys can hear me. I'm trying to talk a little loud because all the stuff's on, but it's gonna go right there, and we'll just have this little section up there that we gotta fill, and it'll mirror the other side. So I'm gonna cut them. Getting it pieced together slowly but surely. I've been using some of the scraps that I had to cut off to get stuff to fit, to fill in some gaps, like that little piece there I had laying on the ground, and that little wedge I had laying on the ground, and kind of looks like crap now, but when we get done welding it all and grinding, it'll look a lot better. And then on the other side here, we used some other pieces. Still got another hole to fill, but it's coming along. Got a lot of work done so far today. I kind of want to put the flywheel on here just to see how it looks. So I might do that. I tripped and I fell on my camera stand, and it broke the top part that the camera actually mounts to. So it's all broken, and it's very difficult to do anything. Well, See, this is the gap I was talking about, or the distance from right here to that. We've got to figure that out, but here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna tighten that one down, and then we're gonna push this up against it. We'll call right here good. And this stuff's loose, so purely for demonstration purposes only. Get on there. Watch it be completely off on each side. Why does it look different? God, I hope it's... I can't even read this. But this gap looks bigger. That is 1000% concerning. Oh my gosh. It completely looks... Is it me? Is it the flex plate? That's about 1/2 inch. That is about 1/4 inch. It's completely off. So how did that happen? Could it be the shaft? What do we have up here? We want the front of this. 7 1/4 to the face of where the transmission mounts. 7 1/4 to the face. So these top mounts are exactly correct. So that could mean this shaft is not centered. If it's tilted this way, that would cattywampus this. So we need to measure these to what on the engine? Okay, so to some mount on the engine, I've got, we'll do outside. This. Outside. We've got about 8 1/16. 8 1/16 there. Seven 7/8 here. Oh my word. If that is the same length on each side. So 7/8 to 1/16. What is that? 1/4 inch? 1/4 inch difference, and that's kind of what I thought. Right there we have just shy of a 1/2 inch gap. Right here we have, I can't even read it. Let's see. 1/4 inch. So it's a 1/4 inch off. That is extremely bad. So how did that go wrong? How are these? Did I warp it? Did I weld too much? Did I put pressure somewhere? What can I do? I could run. And which one of them is true with this? Does this side bow in, or is this side straight? Snap. I need a bell housing. I could remove that one, so I don't have the whole weight of a transmission. Kind of put it up here and see what's not straight, and then what else is this? Telling me the truth. Oh my word. 92 degrees. 92 degrees. What about now? 92. $91. What's this flywheel at? $90. Perfect. What's this at? This stupid thing. There we go. I have to free it up sometimes. That's at 90, perfect. So, well, that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching. I'm just kidding. Well, it is. I'm gonna have to look into this. We'll see where we're at though. Alright, so that's that for this video. We did end up, this side here is slightly off. This kicks out. And what I think it was is, I think when I unbolted it from that and everything, I think the metal just was slightly warped. And when I measured the bottom here, I was measuring that bar that came across and I measured against this plate. So I think it just kicks out a little bit. Very easy fix. It's the, I was saying 1/4 inch, but I think it's actually roughly the thickness of this, 3/16 off. I'm just gonna cut this weld in here and push it back. Very easy fix. But that's this for now. Next week we're gonna get more into finishing all this welding and then getting all the LS components to work in here. We ordered some bearings that say they could be here September 18th at the latest. So that's gonna be a real kink in the progression of this. But just to end this, I got the flex plate here. Try not to take up too much of you guys' time. You saw where it'll go. Slide on, and there we go. And that's our transmission there. So you can get the picture. It's long, really long. So it might not even work. I mean, I know we're gonna have to cut the firewall to get it to fit, but you can kind of see the beginnings of it all right there. So thanks for watching, guys. This was a long one, and the next one's probably gonna be in the 50-minute range as well, but thanks for watching again, and stay tuned.